Hey, good Monday evening, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Brad Penovich here. Welcome into Live Weather Impact. Tonight, we're actually tracking some showers and thunderstorms. Not as many as earlier, but a couple that are producing some very heavy rain. In fact, I'm sure when Alex comes on here in a second from FMY, we'll talk about a flash flood warning over in Davidson County. But if you are watching from Davidson County, right near the Rowan County line, we do have a flash flood warning. Some real heavy rain falling with that one. That's until 9 o'clock. It's just a slow mover, and the atmosphere is so saturated today that I'm not surprised we've got a flash flood warning, because you see the same area getting hit again and again with those training storms, we call it. You definitely could see some flash flooding. Also, big cluster moving through Alexander County. These are all moving west-northwest, by the way, at around 15 to 20 miles per hour. So not a lot of movement compared to most storm motion. You can see a couple storms in Mecklenburg County. This one's right near Mount Holly, not too far from the Whitewater Center. This is drifting west-northwest. Some outflow boundaries left over, which are like rushes of cool air from these storms. So could we see another one or two develop in this area? Certainly possible. I think that's something we'll have to watch as we get later into the evening, because remember, right now it's 6:31. Our sun does not set till 8:36 tonight. So you're talking about plenty of heating of the day still left, another 2 hours plus. And so certainly could see some additional storms. Let's focus in on that flash flood warning real quickly. I'll show you the rainfall amounts, the estimates there. Right there, this is High Rock Lake, by the way. As you cross over between Rowan and Davie County, heading right across the bridge there. Really, really heavy rain. In fact, you see some of those yellows and oranges. Let me grab my rainfall amounts, and we'll kind of show you real quickly how much is actually fallen there. And this is just today, so about 2 to 3 inches of rain. And that storm only popped up a couple hours ago, so certainly the potential for flash flooding is going to be there with that cell. We'll have to see if that sneaks into Rowan County, so just a heads up, if you're in Rowan, pay attention. We might see it creep across the county line. You see the showers and storms in Mecklenburg County, but again, tomorrow will be a different day. We'll probably see some bigger storms rolling in from the west. Speaking of moisture, there is a ton of it in the atmosphere today. Look at the little pocket of dew points in the 70s. Statesville, Salisbury, Concord, Lincolnton, Hickory. That's right along that boundary. And if you look, you can kind of see where that boundary is setting up. It's not really like a warm front or a cold front. It's kind of a weak little trough, almost stationary boundary somewhere right in there. In fact, that's going the wrong direction. We drew that the wrong way. That is not the way. Stationary front right there. There you go. So right along that boundary, you could see that little area of enhanced moisture. That's where the storms are firing up. That's also where it's a little bit cooler because of the clouds and showers. Where the sun is out, like Charlotte, 90 degrees. It is steamy. So through the evening, can't rule out a stray shower or storm. I think most of these stay along that boundary. So further north you go, the higher the chance. Good luck getting to 70 for a low tonight, though. It's going to be interesting to see where these temperatures set up, especially tomorrow, because that stalled front could be draped across the area, could be north, could be south. Depending on what side of the front you're on, if you have clouds, it could be 90, could be 80. I mean, that's really the swing in temperatures with a front like this and cloud cover and showers. Now, dew points, I don't know what's going on there Sunday. It's not going to be that pleasant on Sunday, but it is going to be pretty sticky between now and then. We've got a ton of humidity to deal with. Our futurecast shows those isolated storms tonight, but notice tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., we've got some pop-up showers and storms early. That's because we're getting this energy swinging in from the west. So tomorrow, the movement will be completely opposite on what we had today. And even on Wednesday, we could see a northwest flow set up with some strong showers and storms. And then look at Thursday. Very isolated storms. Look at all the sunshine. That is going to be a scorcher of a day. High temperatures in the mid-90s. Now, chances of rain, they're going to bounce around a little bit this week, but there's no washouts in the forecast. And again, this is just a chance of seeing rain. It doesn't tell you about the duration or intensity. Some of these storms, if you get under them, like today, could see a flash flood warning, could see a severe thunderstorm warning. And in some areas, we'll have complete sunshine. That's just the nature of summer storms like this. And we're kind of stuck in that pattern right now, which is not a bad thing, because remember, the drought's still ongoing. That drought monitor will update on Thursday. The data will go Tuesday to Tuesday, and we didn't get a lot of rain between last week and this week's update. So that's why this 7-day forecast is pretty good, because you see all that rain in the mountains and foothills. You see anywhere from 1 to maybe 3 inches of rain. Now, if you're in Charlotte, you're going, wow, that doesn't help me, but it does because that's the headwaters for the Catawba River Basin. So Upper Burke, Caldwell County, all those areas in the foothills, that all feeds into the Catawba River Basin, and that will absolutely help replenish the area lakes and streams. Temperature-wise, cool air in the middle of the country. For us, we're going to get kind of toasty around here. I think temperatures stay above average for the next several weeks here on the whole. But here's the good news. The precipitation forecast looks like it's going to stay above average. So this pattern that we're in now with the afternoon evening storms, it looks to be locking in. The high isn't camping out over us. We're not going to see drought conditions kind of take over. So I kind of like this setup, honestly. To at least keep the drought at bay. It may not go away, but it won't get worse. Your Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. You see the temperatures Thursday, Friday, because minimal clouds and showers, just 20% chances. Mid-90s could feel like triple digits at times. The rain chances actually stick around through the weekend, and really the 10-day forecast reflects the same. You're going to see plenty of scattered showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon and evening. Certainly nothing widespread, but kind of the typical setup for a summer pattern. And the temperatures, they're going to hold pretty steady as well. We're going to be hovering right around that 90-degree mark for the foreseeable future. So that will likely help produce some widespread thunderstorms after 4 or 5 o'clock every day. The heat, though, is going to become an ongoing issue. We'll have to keep an eye on that potential for maybe later this week. Those heat impacts beginning to creep up, and a real quick look at Thursday kind of shows a little hint of that. Maybe some moderate to major impacts, especially from Charlotte east if we get into the mid and upper 90s. So get ready for that. Your body may not be acclimated for this type of heat and humidity, but it is really going to crank up as we go later this week. So we've got a lot to talk about this evening. Tim is off. Alex Williams is going to join us. We're going to talk about the storms out there right now, crazy weather over the weekend, and a whole lot more coming up in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds after the break right here on Live Weather Impact. So stick around.
Weather Impact Live with Brad Panovich is sponsored by Moisture Lock, crawl space, basement, and foundation repair experts serving the Carolinas since 1988.
Tired of all this rain? Does your yard look like a swamp after it rains? Hi, I'm Greg Doggett with Moisture Lock, Charlotte's premier waterproofing and foundation repair company. The longer water sits, the softer soil will become. This can cause foundation issues. If you're having drainage issues, contact Moisture Lock. We'll get the water away from your home and out of your yard.
Moisture Lock, stabilize, enhance, protect.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Alex Williams is with me today. And Alex, it's kind of rare that we actually have a storm that we both are kind of tracking because it's literally on the edge of both of our viewing areas, and both of our audiences are being impacted. I'm sure you've been keeping a close eye on it, but we got the flash flood warning for Davidson County, but it's literally on the Rowan County line, and that's the way our two areas get together, basically on 85 there. It's been interesting. Very slow-moving tropical downpours that we have this afternoon over the same spots again and again.
Yeah, those dew points in the mid-60s, we're starting to get some of those muggier air masses, and that's going to just promote heavier downpours. I'm sure the precipitable water, the amount of water that we would have in a column if we rained it out, are pretty high as well. And slow-moving thunderstorms, those are what we have to watch in the summertime for flooding.
Yeah, it's funny you say. I just want to look at the sounding really quick because I saw the dew points. Like there's like a weird backdoor boundary almost trying to come in there, and the dew points have been pooling along that boundary like around 70 degrees or so. I'm trying to look at the precipitable water that you mentioned it right now. I'm trying to do a quick snapshot. Let's see what it's up to. Looks like about 2 inches in that area. So yeah, there's a little pocket of really moist air right there, and it's just kind of sitting over the same spot. There were some storms there earlier, a lot of lightning with that as well, as you can see, and that flash flood warning is up until 9 p.m. So really for any of our followers or listeners, if you're traveling on 85 between Rowan and Davidson County, that's going over the Yadkin River there basically, and High Rock Lake is off to the right there. That area definitely floods pretty quickly, so please be careful out there. Some of the totals are pretty impressive. Look like they're approaching about 3 inches, Alex.
Yeah, indeed, about 2 to 3 inches, and that's what in the space of probably these storms developed over the last hour or so.
Yeah.
And so with precipitable water that high, tropical downpours, you can get that much rain. And remember, we're still in a drought, so we have really hard ground, so a lot of that's becoming runoff and becoming flooding issues. Now, this isn't going to be widespread flash flooding. This is going to be in those low-lying flood-prone areas, but still, 85, you put that much water down on 85 or 285, you're definitely going to have some issues most likely.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the rainfall amounts there just on the other side of the county line, it's pretty impressive. I'm trying to look at some of the totals here using some MRMS data, and it's just off the charts. It's just wild to see how heavy that rain has been in some of those areas. The rates, I'm looking at the rates real quick. Man, some is like 2-3 inches an hour. So you're right. This is all falling in a very short period of time. And with the recent drought, I think we've seen that a couple times in our area where we've had some of these heavy rainfall events during the drought. And you kind of notice that, the water just runs off real quickly, Alex. It's not soaking in, so it's almost like it's falling on concrete. Almost at the end of drought, you almost want the rain to be a little steadier so it can soak in instead of these tropical downpours because there's just nowhere for the water to go.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the rest of everybody else in our viewing area is like, where's the rain? We need the rain too.
What are you guys talking about? Yeah.
But yeah, so this is going to continue through 9 o'clock. Again, that doesn't mean the threat continues till 9 o'clock. They could, drop it earlier, but all of that rainfall is going to take a long time to settle in. So still could see definitely some issues in Rowan County, that's northern Rowan County and southern Davidson County. This does not include the city of Lexington.
Yeah, so it's a very narrow path. And as you mentioned, I think for good reason, Alex. I mean, like in Charlotte, we've had sunshine most of the day and it's still near 90, but you go up along Interstate 40, we've had temperatures, in the 60s and 70s because it's pouring rain, and it's been raining for most of the afternoon on and off. When we look at our temperatures, it's kind of weird to see it's 76 in Salisbury, 84 Concord, but it's 90 in Charlotte because the sun is out, where there's clouds and showers. Now, that leads me to my next question, Alex, and we were talking about in our offline chat, this boundary, like tomorrow, it's going to be kind of a weird setup. I mean, some areas could be in the 70s. I mean, I really hate forecasting these kind of things because in June when this happens, it could be 90 or 75 depending on where you are, or clouds or showers tomorrow. So it's a really tough forecast, and it's not a cop-out, but I think you got to almost expect anything tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, and especially right along the battleground, which looks to be maybe a little further west, according to some of the latest model runs. I've got us at 79 for a high tomorrow because I have seen these overachieve and, you know, you bust on the cooler side of things. But, I mean, look at this. Up towards, you say, the triangle. I mean, we're mid to upper 80s versus the upper 60s to lower 70s. That is a huge difference in temperatures.
Yeah, and I think, this is the kind of setup where if you get sun, and you don't have the rain and clouds, the temperature, I mean, this sun angle this time of year, it could easily be upper 80s or near 90. But if you get the clouds and showers that persist, it could stay in the 70s. So this time of year, it seems more about cloud cover and rain when you get these temperatures like this than just actual cool air. But it is an interesting setup, and depending on where that sets up, we could see some pockets of heavy rain tomorrow as well. It's kind of funny, our futurecast isn't like gung-ho on a lot of the rainfall in our area. But I think it might be a little out to lunch, because I do think if that boundary does set up like we're seeing today, there's going to be some pockets of heavy rain, Alex, along that boundary, wherever it is. And if that's to the west of you guys in our foothill communities, somewhere in there probably could be some flash flood risk tomorrow along that boundary.
Yeah, and you can't compare one wedge to the other, because the last wedge that we had fairly dry air in place, and so we didn't get very heavy rainfall rates, whereas the moisture's pooling along these boundaries. The boundaries think of them as miniature cold fronts. They're lifting up that warm, moist air, and we're getting saturation, and there you go, the excessive rain that you just pulled up there. And so that's why we're going to see at least the low-end chance of flooding across the foothills over the next couple of days and into the western Piedmont.
Yeah, so that wherever that sets up, you've got the low to medium excessive rainfall outlook, and that's going to be wherever that boundary is. Yeah, it's a good point you make about the every wedge in cold air damming is a little different. This is kind of like a summer wedge, which they tend to be more, they're more wet or saturated, so there's more moisture to work with usually. And I do think this could be a setup tomorrow where somebody gets a bunch of heavy rain and some folks see almost nothing, and it's going to be the haves and have-nots again. And it's really interesting to look at this. We show this often. I know you guys showed as well. The WPC, which is the Weather Prediction Center, puts out their 7-day QPF forecast. And oftentimes we've been showing this because it's shown such little amounts of rain. What's really interesting, Alex, is when we look at this, hopefully my KML will load here. It's been pretty slow, is how much heavy rain there is in the mountains and foothills. But the Piedmont, especially the central Piedmont, little to no rain. I think this kind of tells you where that boundary and kind of the setup in the atmosphere is going to be more of an upslope, kind of moving into the mountains and foothills, and not so much in the Piedmont kind of flow.
Yeah, and that's a good choice. I'm glad, or a good word to bring up the upslope. So we're going to have an easterly wind kind of in the morning hours tomorrow. So you push that against the higher terrain, it's going to cause rising motion and wring out your moisture, those 2 inches precipitable water over the mountains. Now this is good and bad. Bad because mountains create, easy runoff situations. You get flash flooding very quickly, but it's also the source region for a lot of our lakes and our rivers, so we're going to see a little bit replenishment of that. Also waterfalls, if you like going hiking and seeing great waterfalls, the water will provide that. So that's something to kind of watch as we go through the day tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been saying. Is like, I know it's not a lot of rain over Charlotte on that graphic, but that's the headwaters for the Catawba River Basin, so that's good. That replenishes our water supply, and that's an area that hasn't seen a ton of rain. Outside of that, we had a flash flood up in Caldwell County, I think it was last week. There was a small area, but haven't seen a ton of rain, and you guys have not seen very much rain at all. I feel like we're somewhat spoiled down here. We had a pretty wet May for the Charlotte area south, but along Interstate 40, especially towards the Triad and the Triangle, didn't get much rain in May. It's still probably the driest part of the state has been that corridor from Greensboro to Raleigh, and you guys really do need some rain.
Yeah, we do, and it doesn't look like we're going to get a lot of heavy rain. I think a couple of these fronts coming through maybe will combine with some of the higher dew points to produce some rainfall for us. But you can see that the models are definitely having trouble trying to figure out where the boundary is going to stop. You've got 82 in Greensboro and 74 in Winston-Salem, so that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's good luck pinning that out tomorrow. That'll be a tough one. And then later this week, we go from kind of a coolish setup tomorrow for parts of the area. The heat looks like it really starts to crank up later this week. We hit 92 today, which ties for our hottest day of the year so far. We did that once back in May as well. But the end of the week is looking really hot for us, maybe some mid-90s, because it looks like maybe the ridge camps out over us a little bit and it gets pretty toasty across our area. So I have 84 tomorrow for us, which, boy, you could be 90, it could be 70 tomorrow. It's a tough forecast, but later this week, I'm a little more confident we're going to see the heat and humidity really crank up. And this is kind of on time. We got spoiled last week. It was so beautiful last week, no humidity. It was just gorgeous. And now we're getting into those summer feels where it's going to be the air you can wear, hot, sticky weather, and those pop-up storms. And I think we should just welcome it, Alex, because it's that time of the year. It's like, I love the spring and fall, but hey, it's June. It might as well be hot and humid.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the humidity increases the chances of at least somebody seeing some beneficial rainfall other than just a few hundredths of an inch. Now, the problem is what we see today, where those boundaries park themselves over an area and you get tremendous amounts of rainfall and too much rain in a short amount of time, which definitely could be possible. But those feels like temperatures are going to be upper 90s to lower 100s and kind of for the first time. So, what exactly are you advising people? Probably stay hydrated, right? That's the number one way to beat the heat. Don't do peak physical activity, whether it be running, biking, whatever it may be, in the physical heating of the day, like 2, 3, 4 o'clock. Yeah. Not a good idea. Try to do it in the morning or the evening.
Yeah, don't do what I do, because I always try to run before work, which is like at middle of the day, and it's brutal. I'm used to it, but I tell you what, Alex, it's tough. I'll take a shower and get my suit on and still be sweating because my body temperature is so elevated until I cool down. Did want to point this out today because we had a really interesting thing, and I know you were following this as well as my computer logs me out. We had an earthquake down in the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, depending on what you want to call it. The Gulf, we'll just call it that. It was west of Cuba. What was really interesting about this, though, Alex, was this was a pretty large earthquake in an area of the Gulf that we don't normally see quakes, and it was felt all across Florida. I mean, the number of people in Florida that felt this was just crazy. So I'm going to bring up the map here because my computer logged me out real quickly, but I'll show you real quickly where this was so folks get a good idea on where this happened. If you have friends or family in Florida, I'm sure it's been the talk of the town down there because I saw our sister station down in Tampa. They were wall to wall with this for a while because there were buildings shaking in Tampa, Orlando, Miami. Just kind of weird to see a 6.1 magnitude earthquake in that part of the Gulf west of Cuba and be felt all across Florida. And it really is kind of a weird setup because it's not a fault there. So that's like an interplate quake, we call it. We get these in the southeast, but because of the bedrock here in the southeast, the seismic waves travel really long distances and they can be felt over much bigger areas than out west because they have faults that break the crust up, and so those waves don't travel as far. So it's not uncommon for these quakes to be felt over big distances on the East Coast.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, anytime you're talking an earthquake in underwater or near water, you're thinking tsunami risk, but we really didn't see that materialize, thankfully. And it is interesting. I don't know much of the seismic activity there, like you said, so an interplate boundary. And so it just goes to show, I mean, if you have some sort of boundaries, fault lines, even if they're, not, let's say, your normal types of faults, you can still get earthquakes. And this one pretty powerfully enough to at least shake a lot of people in Florida, which I'm sure they're like, wait, what is this? Is this an earthquake? We're in Florida. We don't get these. We get hurricanes. We traded this off. With hurricanes. But nonetheless, something to watch out for. I don't know if that area's ever seen tsunamis produced from those types of earthquakes.
So that's a good question because that's the first natural inclination. People see a quake underwater, they think tsunami, right? Well, because there's not a plate there, we didn't get uplift of the crust, so it didn't displace water. So you typically, and I will say this, just knowing enough about this, that not all quakes underwater cause earthquakes. You need what's called a thrust quake, which is where the plate gets lifted up and disrupts the water. When it's side to side, which is that slip fault. The side-to-side movement doesn't tend to cause tsunamis, and when there's no plate at all shifting, you don't get a tsunami at all. So probably the biggest threat from tsunamis in the Atlantic, and not to doomsday scenario people, but if you've ever seen that movie La Palma, it's a collapsing volcano of an island in the eastern Atlantic. Landslides and volcanic collapse of islands in the eastern Atlantic probably are a bigger threat for tsunamis in the Atlantic than earthquakes, because they displace water. But what's interesting, Alex, I'm looking at the map of the seismology of this area. There's only been a handful of quakes at all in the Gulf, and none in this area. And it's so far removed from the active plate, which is further south towards like Jamaica, Haiti, the Central Caribbean, where I think people are familiar with quakes down in that area going into Central America. It's just not an area you normally see quakes at. In fact, this quake was felt in the Cayman Islands, Western Cuba, all of the Yucatan, big shaking in Cancun, Mexico, and all the way up to Jacksonville, Florida. So just a really weird a setup that you see a quake that large and affects such a large area. I'm sure people in Florida were freaking out because they, like you said, they're not used to that shaking. And some of the pictures I saw of buildings shaking and people evacuating buildings because they just didn't know what it was at first.
Yeah, and it's very important to always have those types of plans, even if it's a low impact, or not something that happens very often. At least have a plan to like, okay, if this happens, this is the type of information we spread, so that people don't freak out and say, oh no, there's going to be a tsunami coming for Florida. No, in this case, like you said, there's no displacement of that water, and so I think we're fortunate in that regard. But still, nonetheless, interesting to feel earthquakes all the way up to Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think back to the quake, the Sparta quake, which was in our area. The biggest was 5.8 up in Sparta. And I remember feeling that in Charlotte that morning and waking up immediately, looking at my wife and going, that was an earthquake. Didn't know where it was at first, but I knew immediately what it was. And she's like, what do you mean that was an earthquake? And sure enough, the next thing my phone goes off and I see, Sparta. And I'm like, wow, that's all the way up near the Virginia border. But that was felt over such a large area. And it is kind of shocking. If you've never felt a quake before, it's something you're not familiar with. You will ask yourself, what was that? What did I just feel? And so it is a great point to always have a plan just in case. I know in the Southeast, South Carolina gets so many. They do some great outreach down there. They do the great Southeast shakeout. They try to get people to be ready for these, Alex, because while we don't get them often, one of the biggest quakes on the East Coast occurred in Charleston in 1887, and that was like a 7.1 magnitude and caused damage all over the Southeast. So they happen. They just don't happen as frequently as out west.
Yeah. No, I mean, you have active seismic zones there too. You have the Charleston seismic zone, and so it's known for seismic activity.
Yeah. All right, so we're almost out of time here. Real quickly, I just want to give a shout out to our colleague. I know you saw the video. Our sister station in, I believe it was in Fayetteville or Fort Smith, Arkansas, right? On the air, covering a tornado while there was a fire in the studio, Alex. If you've ever had anything like that happen to you while you've been covering severe weather?
So, fun fact, I actually worked at the competing station, KNWA and Fox 24 out in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And so I know the area pretty well. I mean, you just got to give kudos. And in that moment, you've got to protect the viewer from a potential tornado on the ground, active tornado warning. And that does, no matter what happens in the studio, you got to protect the viewer. And I think he did an excellent job of doing that.
Yeah, and shout out to the producer who helped put out the fire. That's all the time we have for us. Stick around. We've got more news coming up.